Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and I am the host of this podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I am also a newly minted USA Today bestselling author of the novel Blank. I've created a whole community of book lovers around this podcast, a publishing company, reading retreats, a bookstore, and more. Learn more at zibbymedia.com or follow me on social at Zibby Owens or join the community at Zibby Readers. Sunny Hostin is the author of Summer on Highland Beach, a novel. She has been on this podcast before and happy to welcome her back. Attorney and four-time Emmy Award-winning legal journalist Sunny Hostin is a co-host of the ABC daytime talk show The View. She is the author of Summer on the Bluffs and Summer on Sag Harbor, as well as I Am These Truths, a memoir of identity, justice, and living between worlds. Hostin received her undergraduate degree in communications from Binghamton University and her law degree from Notre Dame Law School. A native of New York City, she lives with her husband and two children in Westchester County, New York. Welcome, Sunny. Welcome back on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Thank you. You know I love you.
This is what, third time? You got to stop writing books. This is like too much, too fast.
I was going to say, I have all my books in front of me.
Oh my gosh. And they look so good.
Third one.
Wow. That's so crazy. I feel like I was just talking about the first one. You're like, I think they're going to be more. And now all of a sudden, here's the pile. So
I know.
Great. Good. I don't know how are you getting all this done? I want you to talk about more about the book, but you're on The View. You're doing all these things. You've had two best-selling, but I mean, this is crazy. When are you doing it? When are you doing everything?
Really crazy. I have to tell you, I'm kind of a little shocked myself, but I work late into the evening. I'm actually a night owl by nature, whereas everyone else in my family seem to be like morning birds. So I just wait until everyone goes to sleep. And they usually are in bed no later than like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And then I am up. That's sort of the sweet spot for me. So I start writing probably around 10. I try to be done by midnight. I just keep myself on a schedule Monday through Friday. And I get done what I can get done because I get up pretty early for the show. And then on the weekends, Sunday is kind of a family day where we eat dinner together and we go to church together. But Saturdays, I put in a couple hours. And for some reason, that formula really works for me. I can just zone in, either have a cup of tea or a glass of wine, and I'm just off. And it's gotten easier and easier, believe it or not. Once you find your process, and especially for me, because I love these characters now and they're real people in my mind, I just know what they're going to say. I know what situations, the way they will react. And so it's gotten easier, believe it or not.
But then, when do you do all your emails?
That is a great question, because right before getting on with you, I looked down at my phone because I was writing something and I had 258 emails and I felt like passing out. I felt very sick because I figured those are the ones that didn't even make my spam box. So I probably have to at least look at them. So I've gotten into the habit of basically checking my emails every hour, which sounds kind of like, I don't know, kind of weird, but it's the only way I can stop from being overwhelmed by the emails and just all the communications. And I kind of have to try to keep my social battery a little more charged that way.
Wow. Well, yeah, the email struggle is real. I feel like if it ever gets to 500, I have a total panic attack and I clear the decks and I'm I'm going to sit here until then I alphabetize and I sort A through Z and I start at A and I'm I'm going to get through D. And then I'm this is too depressing. I'm going to go from Z up. And then I oh my gosh. No, there seems to be no answer to emails. There's just no answer. You just have to plow through. But I guess
you plow through this work-life balance thing. I think people just prioritize and you do the best that you can. Right? That's what I do. I just do the best that I can. And if I didn't make it through all 258, I'll get back to it again. That's my family and my writing and my show. It's just, requires a lot of attention. And I try to be present in all the spaces, and if an email drops here and there, it's okay.
Yeah.
I always tell moms that it's okay. We do the best we can.
I know. It's just the wrong email dropping. I think that's what I'm always afraid of. It's like the one thing from the school or the one thing, like, will you do, that I'm like, oh my gosh, I missed whatever. So, yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That has happened.
Yeah. I know. As my mom would say, but the beat goes on,
It does.
Okay, so you're writing late at night, which is when my brain is completely fried and I can barely see straight, which is beyond impressive to me as a morning person. Okay, so Olivia has another act in this version. We learn all about her grandmother and Christine and more about her dad and her family and the land and all of it. It is so exciting to dig deep. Tell me about this plot line, where it came from, and the historical context behind it.
Sure. It came from the readers, and that's what's been such an incredible journey for me. Libby, when I first wrote the first book, I wrote it because I wanted to read it. I was just like, there's nothing like this out there. It's going to be this, sort of elevated beach read where you could have a glass of rosé and sit on the beach and put your beach hat on and just get away. That was sort of why I wrote it. And then it became this New York Times bestseller, and it became this phenom, and people were actually visiting Oak Bluffs with T-shirts with the book cover printed on them and walking around, and they found the house that's on the cover, and they're like knocking on the door. I mean, it just took on a life of itself. And what was great about it, though, is that people started actually reaching out to me on my website, and they started reaching out to me in all sorts of ways, and they wanted to know more about Olivia. And so I was able to get this instant feedback, like, well, what about Olivia? What about Olivia? And I thought, she's a keeper, right? Like, well, people want to know more about her. I actually thought people would want to know more about Amma and Carter, or people, would want to know more about Billy and Dulce, or people would want to know about Perry and Damon. But no, people really felt that Olivia's story had some things that really needed to be discovered, and that she herself needed to go on a journey of self-discovery and self-care, very important. And I wrote the second book, and the same feedback came back. People really fell in love with this character. And, I thought, I need to sort of give her flowers here, and let's dig deep. And in terms of history, we know from the first two books, for those that haven't read it, I don't want to spoil everything, but Olivia has had, daddy issues, which a lot of people do have. And she was fortunate enough to really have a very loving father and a very loving godfather. So she had these incredible male figures in her life, but really a lot of trouble with romantic relationships. And as it turns out, she learns in this third book that she has a family that she knew nothing about, right? And it's a family grounded in history, because I love historical fiction. And I knew right away that I was at the beginning of this trilogy that I was going to write about Highland Beach, because I lived in Maryland for 10 years and I had visited Highland Beach. And I knew that so many people didn't know that Frederick Douglass, sort of at the height of his advocacy, and he's called, one of the greatest orators of our time, I think, in generations in our country, at least, and perhaps in the world, that he had this summer home, at this summer place where he could rest, and it sort of sheltered him from the very difficult racism that he was facing, and the very difficult work that he was trying to do to make our union a more perfect union, right? And so he has this place that he would visit. And not only would he visit, Paul Dunbar would visit, and W.E.B. Du Bois would visit. And it's just this rich history about Frederick Douglass that no one knew about. I think the residents of Highland Beach like to keep it that way, actually, which is perhaps why no one knows about it. They've made that a little bit clear to me. They want this to remain a small community, a safe community, a community rich with history. There is a Frederick Douglass Museum there that is open to the public sometimes. It has very, strict hours. But I decided that I wanted to teach people about this magical place, because I've stayed there many times and it's very magical. And I wanted people to explore along with Olivia, because she learns not only self-care, she learns to take care of her mental health, which I think has been stigmatized for so long. She learns her value and her worth, and she learns not only how to love herself, but to love a partner. And I wanted to explore all those issues, especially in the time that we're in now in the country. I wanted to give people a getaway and something sweet, which I think it is. But of course, it's complicated because my books are generally a little complicated, and they're all bound in family, place, and history.
So when you're writing and you're doing more inspired by historical narratives and all of that, how close to the truth do you feel you have to, like, how close to the line do you toe? Like, are there really 46 families in the community? Do you know, like, are there,
I
do
stay
you have
pretty
to,
close to it.
you do? Okay.
I do. I work with a researcher. I bring someone along with me whenever I visit. I have that person. If people don't want anything audio taped, I have them taking copious notes so that I can ask the questions and receive things. I've learned a lot about Autopilot, which is sort of your own personal assistant online. So if I'm Zooming with someone, I have Autopilot taking notes. My son, my college age son taught me that. It's a wonderful, wonderful trick.
Every time people, when it shows Autopilot would like to record, I'm like, no, don't record.
Yeah.
I always say no.
I love it because it's my way of being able to be more present and not having to write things down and take notes. I can actually take it in. And so I do a lot of research. I think it's right to get it right. I will say that this community in particular wants to remain pretty private. And so I assured them that I would be respectful of that wish. So this book, I think, while it is based in even more history than the other two books, I did try to change a little bit of the fabric of the community, really to protect it, because it's quite a gem. The mayor wanted it to be protected. I mean, if you think about Highland Beach, this is a place not far from Annapolis, Maryland, which is, sort of the capital there. And it's a beautiful place. Everybody knows about Annapolis. They know about Washington, D.C. They know, about Baltimore. They don't know about Highland Beach, and it's intentional. There are no Airbnbs there. There are no restaurants there. You can't.
So did you not stay overnight?
I did, because my friend lives there.
Oh,
See,
there you go.
but I got kind of lucky. That's how I found out about it. My friend Erica lives there and has had a home there. It's a family home, so she's summered there forever. And I didn't even realize before I started really, really doing the research for this book that they don't rent their homes out. They don't. They sell to people that they know. They sell to people that they know will take care of the community. And really what really happens is they pass it down generationally, which is something that is pretty special, especially when you're talking about a historically Black beach community. There is this federal designation, HBBC, or kind of like HBCU, right? Historically Black colleges and universities. There are HBBCs, and they have really maintained this incredible hamlet almost of excellence and community, notwithstanding people's trying to sort of go in and break it up. It's remained within a certain group of families for a really long time.
So it sounds like there will be no T-shirts for this community.
I do not think they are going to want the T-shirts. I mean, it's interesting because when Summer on the Bluffs came out, I had no idea that would happen. And, it sold like 25,000 copies the first week. And that summer, I'm told, commerce and visitors and travel, things went up like 200%. I had no idea that would happen. Summer on Sag Harbor, we had a little bit of an idea that would happen. And it happened there again, but it's in the Hamptons. And so if you're not staying in Sag Harbor, you can stay in other places. It did drive up property values, which for me, I'm grateful that it helped the community. But Highland Beach is a different kind of place. I don't think that's going to happen. And that's intentional. They want to keep it the jewel that it is. And that's fine.
Wow. Well, some of the themes that run through the story, I feel like are, powerful and universal, one of which is rejection and what happens when someone you love doesn't want you, whether it's a grandmother who says like, I don't want you to be born, or,
Yeah.
like, is that intentional, or does it come out when you're writing? And what are your views on overcoming rejection?
Yeah, it's intentional. I am mother of Gen Zers, and I've watched them navigate middle school, which is awful. I've watched them navigate high school. I'm watching one now navigate college and sports, and really, failure. I've often thought I've learned more from my failures than I have from my successes. If you can pick yourself up and dust yourself off when rejected or when you fail, it makes you stronger, I think. But a lot of that also has to do with knowing your value and knowing your self-worth. And so it is something that I intentionally explored. I especially for women, quite frankly, because I grew up, the daughter of a really feisty, strong woman who's like, you got to be able to make it on your own. Even though, she was happily married to my dad, it was just make your own way, make your own life. No one does a better you than you do. And so I was filled with all these wonderful, I guess, almost isms, like you are just terrific. And I saw that my children had that because I instilled that in them, but I saw so many of their friends struggling. I've seen so many of my friends struggle. I've seen so many marriages break up. I've been married 25 years. Divorce is 50% of the population. I've had 50% of my friends get divorced. And women in particular in my friend group sort of value themselves through someone else's eyes. And especially being in the television business. I mean, you get rejected all the time. You get rejected daily on social media for sure. And so if you don't have that really strong constitution, it can be crippling. And I thought, let me
publishing too, by the way. Publishing yeah.
It's really, you could send your book out, your manuscript out to 100 publishers, and maybe one thinks you're great. I was actually speaking to Stephen King, interviewing Stephen King. Everyone rejected him. John Grisham has a similar story. Everyone rejected him. And Ellen Hildebrand, everyone rejected her, but you get that one person that gets you. I got lucky. My first editor, Carrie Farron, got it. She got me. And I thought, let me explore what that's like. And I also wanted to include therapy. Joy Behar has been really, really good for me in terms of saying, she's not a therapist, of course, but she likes to do psychodrama. And so she'll like do little mini psychodramas with me after our show sometimes. And I really went to her quite a bit when I was writing this book to just ask her hypotheticals about, what would a therapist say here? What does this look like? Would a therapist give you an answer? And she's like, no, you come up with the answer. And so that finds its way right into the book. So there were all these themes that were just kind of bouncing around in my head from my life, from my friends, but also from the readers. The readers were, really interested in the fact that I had a homosexual couple, a lesbian couple. They were really interested in the fact that I had interracial relationships. They were really interested in the fact that I had a woman who didn't understand her beauty and her self-worth. And those are, I think, themes that we see in every single space, man, every single community. And I think it's a read for anyone, really, for everyone. It's about a historically Black beach community, but this is a book for everyone. And it's a book for men, too. I'm always shocked that so many men read these books. I'm proud of it. But I knew that these are themes that are just, in particular, post-pandemic, that people really needed to deal with.
Wow. It's amazing. So if it's a trilogy then, and you've, run through these communities before you get sort of, people are like, don't come, we need our privacy. No, I'm kidding. Where is your writing career going to go from here?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm writing a new series.
Ooh.
And it's about a witch's coven. Unbeknownst to many, except those that are closest to me, I am a sci-fi fantasy fanatic. I'm obsessed with like witches and vampires and UFOs and that kind of thing. Whoopi Goldberg and I have that in common. We sort of like outer space and things like that. And I just started writing it. I've got a couple chapters in, and my book agent absolutely loves it. Although, I'm after this went in, I've been told, do I have three more about these characters? And, there are other HBBCs because readers have told me about 15 of them now. So I have a running list. So will I continue to write beach reads? I love Ellen Hildebrand. I love Terry McMillan. I kind of think, yeah, I don't know if this is the end of my career writing beach reads because I love that genre so much. But the next books will take a little bit of a turn, and I think there'll be some crossover audience, but I think they'll find a place with other people as well, and I'm excited about that.
Wow. Well, fantasy, romantasy, like that whole thing is just blowing up
Yes,
right now.
I
So,
love it.
well, I know how much work it takes to have a book a year is essentially what you're doing, right? I mean,
That's what I'm doing.
it's a
Yeah,
lot. I
yeah,
mean, as soon as you finish the
it is.
publicity, it's like the next book. So hats off to you for, I mean, that
Thank
level of
you.
production and all of it. And,
Thank you. It's really something.
impressive.
I finished writing this book, and my agent said, "When is the next one?" And I was like, "The next one?
Yeah.
I
Give
don't
me a
know. It's gonna
minute.
take." I was like, "I think I need to take a break." And then lo and behold, I really did start sketching out something completely different. And I hope it's as well received as these books. But I'm really excited about the next trilogy.
Amazing. So exciting. Well, I have to say, I peeked at your social media before we hopped on here quickly and
Yes.
watched your excerpt about the protests. So we don't have to talk about it, but
Yeah.
I was just curious about your view of it being an anti-war protest and not sort of an
Yeah.
anti-Israel versus anti-Palestinian or whatever. I understand they're now like hostages and at Colombia today.
Yeah.
It's like never ending.
Yeah, it is never ending. I write historical fiction because I think if we don't look at our past can become prologue, right?
Mhm.
And so I am very interested in current events. And I'm a student of history. I took Middle Eastern studies when I was in college. And so it's something that I feel pretty deeply about. I've often spoken about the fact that my grandfather is Jewish. And so I've taken an interest in what is happening, but most importantly, I think that our world is feels like the world is on fire for me.
Mhm.
And I think for a lot of people. And I'd like there to be peace.
Mhm.
And that sounds kind of corny, and it doesn't sound, thoughtful, but that's what I think. I think that our young people, and I speak to a lot of young people, not only because I'm raising Gen Zers, but because I'm just interested in the lens, right? And it seems to me that that is the lens that they are looking through. They're looking through the fact that they've lived through a pandemic.
Mhm.
They're looking through the fact that they are the generation that's going to make less money than their parents.
Mhm.
They're looking through the lens of having seen war,
Mhm.
having also seen the first Black president,
Mhm.
having seen a terrible rise in anti Semitism and a terrible rise in racism. And I think that they want peace. I do. And when I look at them protesting, I look back at the Vietnam era. I look back at apartheid, the protests that I participated in when South Africa was under, this apartheid state. I think about there not being weapons of mass destruction, but we were told there were. And so I think that, you know, in many respects, what I have said privately and what I just recently said publicly was, these students are not only exercising their First Amendment rights to peacefully assemble. If it's not peaceful, that's another thing, but peacefully assemble. And I hope that people will be able to come together and do what we do on The View, listen to each other. Yes, is it uncomfortable to listen to some things coming your way? Yeah, it really is. To see things, that are uncomfortable. Yeah, it is. But I think without that, there is no real progress and that there is no real peace. And I've spoken to a lot of these kids on college campuses, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for resolution. They're looking for peace. They're looking for humanitarianism. And, they may very well save us from ourselves. I have a lot of faith in this new generation, faith that I don't think is shared by everyone. But I do have a lot of faith. And I think that the right thing to do, since I do it for a living, is speak up when you feel strongly about something. And that really is very American, in my opinion.
I just interviewed Manuel Acho and Noah Tishby today about exactly that, uncomfortable conversations. And I was saying to them, and the same thing for you on The View, it's like you are pros, right? Like you are a professional conversation haver, right? Like you guys have you're articulate and you're smart and whatever. And I think sometimes people want to have those conversations and they don't necessarily have the skills. They might have the desire, but I'm not
Because
sure.
it's hard.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know where we leave what we, like what then? Like what if the conversations end up being hurtful, which, I don't know.
And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're uncomfortable, and sometimes you don't feel great in the space. But without those conversations, I don't see real progress, actually. And, we try to do it every day. And I've actually been very surprised at the tremendous amount of support that I've received. I've received messages from all around the world. I just got a message from France. So people are really watching these students. They're watching what we're doing here in this country, and they're listening. And that's all I ask. I listen. I hope other people listen to different points of view, and you come to the conclusion that you come to. But to sort of just be in a bubble or in a silo and not even be open to dialogue is distressing to me. And I'm hoping that rather than see us, squelching and almost the choking of dialogue, I'm hoping that we'll see more people be able to come together and speak and talk. And I think that's how you reach real resolution.
Amazing. Sunny, thank you so much for coming back on. Thank you for your work and, raising some of these big, important issues and all of that. So
thank you so much for having me again. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you love it, please leave a review and follow us on social at Zibby Owens and at Zibby Readers.